Well, hello again. This is Dr. Dale Warren, your professor, also known as Papa Dale, and we are going to pursue a lecture today titled Rome's Rise to Power. Now, this is a ThB lecture, Bachelor of Theology and Bible, part of the Jan Hus Institute in Biblical Studies, USA. So let's put on the glasses so I can see my notes. And let's just get right into it. Rome's rise to power. The rise of the Church of Rome as the preeminent center of Christianity involved a complex interplay of theological development, ecclesiastical politics, historical circumstance, and socio-cultural factors from the early church period through the Middle Ages. Early Christianity and the apostolic era. The roots of the Christian church date back to the 1st century AD with the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Following Christ's ascension, his disciples, particularly the apostles, began spreading the message of the gospel throughout the Roman Empire. Peter, considered one of the foremost apostles, is traditionally believed to have settled in Rome and eventually become its first bishop. This established a spiritual connection between Rome and a central figure of early Christianity, laying the groundwork for the city's future prominence. Initially, the Christian church was decentralized, comprising various communities led by local leaders. The early church faced intense persecution, particularly under Roman emperors such as Nero and Diocletian, which often led to a strong sense of unity among believers. During this time, different centers of Christianity, including Jerusalem, Antioch, and Alexandria, developed their own unique theological emphases and practices. And then we come to the period of Constantine and the Edict of Milan. This was a watershed moment, and it occurred in 313 AD. Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, granting religious tolerance to Christians and other faiths as well, and effectively ending official persecutions. This event marked the beginning of the church's shift from a marginalized sect to a socially accepted and politically influential institution. Constantine's conversion to Christianity and his subsequent support for the church significantly contributed to its growth and establishment. Constantine called the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which aimed to address theological disputes regarding the nature of Christ and to establish a unified doctrine. The council produced the Nicene Creed, affirming the divinity of Christ and enhancing the church's theological foundation. The decisions made at Nicaea were pivotal, as they led to greater unity among Christians, though varying interpretations continued to exist. Then came a period of the development of ecclesiastical authority. In the centuries following the Edict of Milan, did you get that? In the centuries following the Edict of Milan, the role of bishops evolved, with bishops in important cities like Alexandria and Antioch gaining significant influence. So the reason I stopped was to emphasize the very great periods of time that these events happened across. And so the Bishop of Rome, who became known as the Pope, began to be viewed as a spiritual leader among other spiritual leaders, particularly due to the belief that Peter, one of Jesus' original apostles, was the first bishop of Rome, but also because Rome was the capital of the empire. The tradition of apostolic succession, where each bishop could trace their spiritual authority back to the apostles, further solidified this view. The crisis of the 3rd century, a period marked by instability within the Roman Empire, led to significant changes within the church. As the empire fragmented, the church provided stability and hope to many people. The bishopric grew in authority and structure, with Rome emerging as one of the most powerful sees due to its connection to St. Peter and its strategic location in the nation's capital. Then we got to a period of theological development and schism. By the 5th century, theological disputes continued to fracture the early church. Areas such as North Africa and the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, experienced their own sets of theological battles, but the Bishop of Rome increasingly positioned himself as a central authority. Figures like Pope Leo the Great, emphasized the unique authority of the Roman See in defining orthodoxy and addressing theological controversies. He just put on this mantle, self-affirmation of his authority, and put on this mantle of authority and wore this coat of many colors around, metaphorically, in the church community. And people just kind of bowed to it. They kind of acquiesced. Pardon me. Now, Pope Leo I played a crucial role in affirming Roman authority when he met with Attila the Hun in 452 AD and convinced the leader not to sack Rome. This act elevated the bishopric status as not only a spiritual authority, but also a protector of the city. Afterwards, the importance of the Bishop of Rome grew as the Western Roman Empire fell into decline. And so the political apparatus begins to disintegrate, and the spiritual apparatus begins to assume and take upon itself the power and authority of the political. The former split between the Latin Church, the West, and the Greek Orthodox Church, the East, began solidifying in the 11th century, culminating in the Great Schism of 1054. While the Eastern Church recognized various patriarchs, the papacy maintained a distinct, singular authority, which further strengthened Rome's position in the West. Then we come to a period of the papacy and the Middle Ages. The evolution of the papacy during the Middle Ages was marked by significant power struggles, both politically and with other religious authorities. As the Western Roman Empire crumbled, the papacy increasingly took on administrative and political roles, often stepping in where secular authorities failed. The Pope became a central figure in Europe, mediating conflicts and exercising influence over cultural and political matters. And of course, if you have a religious leader that is adored and followed by millions and millions of people all over the empire, that stands up between two national monarchs and says, you're going to do this or you're going to do that, or I'll toss you out of the church and your entire spiritual future is in question, that has a lot of power. That has a lot of authority. During this time, significant popes like Gregory I, Gregory the Great, enhanced the church's role in daily life, emphasizing pastoral responsibilities and the importance of the liturgical calendar. The establishment of monastic orders such as the Benedictines further institutionalized the church's influence, promoting education, charity, and the Christian way of life in a changing world. The crowning of Charlemagne as Emperor of the Romans by Pope Leo III in 800 AD is another key event that solidified the Church's power. This event illustrated the interdependence of ecclesiastical and political power, laying the foundation for the Holy Roman Empire. This process was aided by the leaders of the Roman Church seeking to be the highest earthly authority. It used its spiritual authority in several key ways to promote itself as a higher authority than the kings and princes of Europe. Now, some of those ways are the divine right of kings. The church promoted the idea that monarchs ruled by divine right, the approval of God, which meant that their authority was granted by God. By controlling the narrative around this belief, the church positioned itself as the intermediary between God and the rulers, thereby establishing itself as the higher authority. Other than the divine right of king, there was also the principle of excommunication. The church had the power to excommunicate individuals, including rulers. This meant that they would be removed from the community of believers and could not receive the sacraments, which many believed condemned them to eternal damnation. Exercising this power over monarchs demonstrated the church's spiritual control. Then there was the act of crowning monarchs. The church played a significant role in the coronation of kings, symbolizing divine approval of their rule, divine right of kings. This ceremonial act strengthened the church's influence as rulers were seen as ordained by God, reinforcing the church's role as the spiritual authority. Another aspect was moral authority. The church served as the moral compass of society, dictating ethical behaviors and standards. By framing its teachings as the ultimate guide for moral living, the church could challenge the decisions of secular leaders, positioning itself as the true source of wisdom. And of course, the church had control over the sacraments. The church administered the sacraments, which were seen as a means of grace necessary for salvation. By controlling access to these sacraments, the church reinforced its authority over the spiritual lives of individuals and, by extension, their leaders. You see, the doctrine, the theology at the time was that Christ's death, burial, and resurrection alone were not solely efficacious for salvation, that he had given to the church additional means of grace called sacraments, whereby people who could take communion could receive a little bit more of grace. People who were baptized got another slice of grace, and other sacraments. I believe that there were 7 of them. And so it was via not only the sacrifice of Jesus, but it was via these sacraments administered by the church and controlled by the church that were the cumulative deciding factors as to whether a person was going to be saved or go to hell. And then we have political alliances, where the church often entered into alliances with powerful nobles and monarchs, leveraging its influence to affect political decisions. These relationships helped solidify the church's position as a powerful entity in European politics. Then there was also the educational influence. The church maintained control over education for centuries, shaping the intellectual landscape of Europe. By being the primary source of learning, it asserted its influence in shaping the minds of future leaders. Some would say that they not only instructed, but they propagandized people as they taught them. Now, through these methods, the Roman Catholic Church established and maintained its authority, often placing it above that of secular rulers in the eyes of the populace. The result of which was then, and lasts until today, the supremacy of the Bishop of Rome. And it lasts today only in the minds of Roman Catholics. And of course, the Protestant Reformation changed all of that. So, anyway, that is our Bachelor of Theology and Bible lecture on Rome's rise to power for the Jan Hus Institute of Biblical Studies, USA. I've been your host, your old pal Papa Dale, Dr. Dale Warren. And until we meet in the next video, keep in mind that I'll be praying for you, that you'll be well, and that you'll be blessed.